Welcome to Saturday. It is hot as F-U-C-K. That's right. If I spell it out, we'll be able to make it work on streaming, right? Is that the rule?
Right.
No? Sure. Thank you all for coming into this air-conditioned facility and enjoying this conversation. NFTs and Onramp for Generation C. Mass adoption, in case you're trying to figure out what that all means. My name is Mary. In this capacity on this talk, I'll be speaking with two amazing individuals who are very, very aware of the space in a way that I'm discovering more and more each day. We have another guest. Hopefully, Lindsay will be able to join us, but want to make sure there's space for her. So pretend that she's here. We might ask this person a question just to see what happens in the reaction to people here. It's a social experiment. So I'm the Senior Director of Strategy and Web3 at Wasserman. We are a talent agency and also made up of numerous other companies that serve the space as far as like talent, entertainment, sports, brands, properties, and also an agency that does its own social strat as well. And we're going to just be talking about this in a way that is going to be quick and easy, hopefully, and honest. As we all know, NFTs just took storm pretty much over the past 2 years. I know that because I'm still trying to tell my mom why I'm spending $1,500 on a thing that she can't hold. And so there's a lot of education that needs to be there. And there's a lot of opportunities in a space that's bubbling up. So I'm going to start with someone who doesn't need an introduction, but he's going to give you an introduction. Very amazingly well-versed in not only this space, but has a history in understanding how all of these cultural spaces fit together in what we call Generation Crypto and in this space in general. So Les, I'll let you start, and then I'll have Amanda give an intro as well.
Thanks very much. My name is Les Borsai. My background, I actually worked with Mary's company in a couple of different capacities. I came from entertainment and did everything from kind of managing artists to working as a concert promoter. In 2013, I became an advisor for a company called Ripple. In 2014, I invested in the Ethereum pre-sale. In 2017, bought my first NFTs. In 2018, I co-founded a company called Wave Financial. We're an RIA, or asset manager. We are deep in the NFT and metaverse space. We have a fund that invests in that space and a couple of other active funds, and we mainly do finance. The music business was a really great place to get a sense of community and how all of this works, which I'm pretty excited to get into, but I'll hand it over to Amanda.
Hi, I'm Amanda Cassatt, aka Amanda.eth. I got started in Ethereumverse in 2015, was Chief Marketing Officer at Consensus from 2016 through 2019, so through Ethereum's early crucial growth period, was arguably the first Web3 marketer, and built, along with my teammates, a lot of the best practices in Web3 and decentralized marketing and comms. I left after 4 years and started a company called Serotonin, which is the largest Web3 marketing agency. And we've also expanded into other professional services like recruiting and accounting. And we have a product studio. And last year we spun our first product out of that product studio, which you may have heard of, which is called Mojito, which powers NFT marketplaces, back-end infrastructure. So we believe basically the same way there's Amazons and eBays like OpenSea of this world, there's also that back-end infrastructure, because we think that every single e-commerce site is going to sell NFTs, and there's going to be back-end infrastructure that powers all of that. And so we spun out Mojito last year, raised into it from Connect Ventures, and we're working on another spin out this year.
So Amanda, I'll get it right to you. What are some of the most, and here's how I know these are notable moments, for those who were in this thing or are still in this world called Clubhouse, there's even the insert of NFT conversations there, and there's a few historical markers that people can call out where the NFT Web3 conversation really pushed and drove the needle as far as like the markets and mainstream like conversation. According to you, and Les will have the same question as well, what are some of the most notable moments across the timeline of NFTs as we know it that are closely connected to mass adoption so far?
Yeah, so one example that I'm going to talk about is the launch of the Sotheby's Metaverse. and the Sotheby's Metaverse is powered by Mojito. And when that launched, Sotheby's was founded in 1741 and is the oldest ever auction house. So we're not even talking about Web 2 to Web 3 transformation. We're talking real traditional business transformation, like no web to Web 3. And they were able to create, working with us, a strategy and also a set of software to be able to repeatably sell NFTs in what looks like an e-commerce storefront. And so what I think is actually the most exciting moment, and a lot of their sales have been super exciting, but what I think is the most exciting moment isn't so much this drop, that drop, it's just the constant repeated presence of NFT availability along with other kinds of e-commerce and other kinds of artworks or collectibles on these freestanding marketplace sites. And I think that's actually the more mainstream part as it just becomes ubiquitous.
Les, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of have a little bit of a different experience. While I agree with the financial components of what Amanda speaks about, the moment for me, I think it was 98, Eric Hughes and Tim May wrote a paper, and it was a cypherpunks manifesto, and it spoke about corporate responsibility and privacy. And if we look at kind of Web 1 going into 2, going into 3, I always kind of look at the underlying ethos of what the space is about. And, you know, that now, you know, obviously has been being built for decades the way the metaverse has, and there's not a single moment, you know, that got us to Fortnite and Tim Sweeney and, you know, Epic and all these guys building these immersive environments. I think that moment took us to a place where everything with this new generation kind of combined, and there wasn't a distinction between IRL and being immersive. And that's the moment, is that paper for me.
So we're still touching the surface of Web3. NFTs are still newly in this idea of a conversation as we know it now. Less even talking about the issuance and understanding of CryptoPunks in the 90s is
2017 for the punks.
2017 for the punks. And just the conversation around crypto is way longer than just these past like few years where it's like a buzzword, right? So what do you think is driving this mass interest, even in the midst of right now a downturn across the market?
So this is fundamentally a technology. I think a lot of people in the market, when they think of NFTs, they think of some kind of funny-looking cartoon animal that has something to do with the blockchain, and that's their interaction surface, and that's fine for now. But it's just non-fungible tokens, right? And tokenization is a property that really got popularized with the Ethereum blockchain, the idea that you can create tokens on top of a blockchain. ERC20, ERC721, now there are all kinds of different tokens that you can create. And I think that word is even going to go away, and it's just going to become a concept, right? And so the same way that human beings discovered that you can put a fence around a plot of land and call that land yours, and then create all kinds of financial products on top of that, borrowing, lending, mortgages, what we've done with NFTs is make digital space ownable. And that adds an entirely new set of potentially financializable products to the market, which adds just a ton of value to the market. Thinking about it from a financial setting, thinking about it from a more social and kind of creator setting, it means it's really easy for a creator to be remunerated not only for primary sales of one of these kinds of objects, but also the secondary sales. It's really easy for brands to instantly get global reach for their products and not have to deal with supply chain issues, and also not have to deal with the laws of gravity. And it means that people, brands and artists can basically create these new product lines and create this whole new product category that's non-cannibalistic to any existing product that they already offer, that's really just an addition on top of what they offer, and maybe even allows them to unlock the value and liquidity from assets or IP that they already own. So it becomes a no-brainer.
Les, what do you think about this?
I agree with a lot of that, but I'll just add that I think this generation, because this is meant to be a conversation about where this generation is going, has a great imagination, and started with Wall Street Bets for me and the gamification of banking. The fact that Citadel shorted GameStop and a Reddit group would go long ties into, I think, economy and liquidity, like Amanda mentioned. And when I mean, I look at this generation like I looked at my generation. Like, I'm Gen X, I'm old. You know, I was apathetic and kind of hated everything. I just didn't have the resource or the money to make a lot of changes, so I had to like go through the system to break it. And this generation can generate wealth from their own creativity. They can do things like the democratization of art. I mean, if you have a following that you build in community, you can sell art in a way that you couldn't do it through mainstream galleries. And their imagination, and even the imagination of corporates, you know, you take a look at all of the different functions that come out of companies, it's not completely geared to what the company, you know, what the mission statement of that company may be. You know, Coindesk, for instance, they could produce movies if they want to, they could do finance, and it's like, there aren't those same guardrails. And that's what I love about the space, because when you look at the big PFP drops, what's actually happening is a lot of liquidity is coming into the marketplace, and they've just created this economy that crosses boundaries.
I would love to just ask this pop-up question that just came to mind, which is affordability, right? So mass adoption, affordability. I currently do not have 1 ETH. I paid my rent with my 1 ETH, AKA cash. And so when you think about the affordability of a lot of these projects, mass adoption, what that means for this to really transcend, what comes to mind in terms of thoughts for that, in terms of participating in the marketplace?
I mean, what comes to mind is just this is the future of retail. And the same way there are high-end items in retail and medium-end items and low-end items, that entire spectrum will exist in the world of NFTs. And people will purchase things, if they're wise, that are within their budget ranges. And that full range will exist as it does in other parts of the economy.
What comes to mind for me is dedication to curiosity. I bought Ethereum for 50 cents in the pre-sale, and it was because I was curious and I wanted to understand what was coming next. And I think that's something that I got from the music business, the ability to identify, and I just continue to be curious. I mean, I bought Goblins, you know, right after the free mint, and understanding how the market is changing, how we go from price mints to free mints. You know, you could buy Goblins on the secondary when they popped just a handful of weeks ago for $100 a pop. You know, they're trading at 15, 20 grand if you took a look at the right traits on those Goblins. So I just think it's curiosity and being able to be priced in.
What are the current things that you're doing, and I'll have you start this question off, Les, when it's mainstreaming the conversation in your current work in this space?
Oh, the current work in the space? So we, for the longest time, you know, because I got into NFTs early, my co-founders and partners wanted us to do a fund. That's what we do. We build financial products. And I'm like, I don't get it. What, an NFT fund? That sounds nuts. And they were like, look, idiot, you know, art's an asset. And I'm like, got it, okay. So we launched a fund, and it's performed incredibly well. And the people we, you know, kind of partnered up with to do this were people that came from the space, you know, Veg Surfer, Jeebs, these guys who really kind of understood community was important. And then we put them with the financial folks at the company, and something really magical happened. It was almost more like a record company structure that was regulated because we were regulated. So the fund, you know, I think in 3 months is up 155%. And it's great because we get to just hear and participate and create. And for a guy that, you know, asset managers are supposed to be boring, it really helps with like the creative needs that I have. So that's one of the things I do a lot in the space.
Amanda, how about you?
So recently on Mojito, NFT collections were launched for Liverpool Football Club, which, believe it or not, touches 1 billion people in the world have interacted with Liverpool Football Club. A lot of football fans. And the Milwaukee Bucks. And they've been involved in some really big playoff games recently. And so that's been very mainstream. And that's the direction we're going. And so I got asked this on stage last year at NFT NYC, and it was funny because it was a big stage, room with lots of people, and it was, when are NFTs going to be mainstream? And my answer was, y'all are mainstream. Like, this is the mainstream. So many people are excited about this. The fact that this exists at this scale, it's not 100% of Americans or 100% of people in the world. It doesn't have the same adoption yet as the internet, but it's definitely getting there. And these two main global teams using this technology is super interesting. And the other cool thing about it, so when these new groups or brands start doing NFTs or start playing in Web3, it's beachhead for new users to come and get their first wallet. And that's something we've thought about a lot at Mojito, is giving them that experience so they can have a wallet that is in a multi-sig that we custody and they custody, and then they can take it whenever they want and make it just their wallet and have it be a fully native Web3 wallet, or they can also come in with their MetaMask. So what we really care about is creating this graded experience where someone can come in, they don't really know that much about it, and they're taken care of, and that they can actually go down the rabbit hole, learn about Web3, and decide to take self-sovereign control of their assets and their value, and enabling that full gradient so they can be part of that transition, I think is so important. It used to be that people would create their first wallets because the flow of capital was people turning their dollars or their other kind of fiat into crypto. And they would go to Coinbase, or they would go to one of the other usually centralized exchanges, and they'd go get their first wallet. But now what's really cool is instead of just those really big arteries, there are all these different little capillaries of adoption, because people are coming into the crypto space through the interaction surface that they're having with their favorite brand that's now doing an NFT drop, or that now is doing a fungible token drop. And so there are all of these other new kinds of ramps into the space that didn't exist before, that are utility-based rather than investment-based, that are games, that are utilities, that are art. And it's so fun building for those because it's a whole new kind of intention emerging into the space.
Yeah, you actually reminded me of something. One of the other things that's very different for the space, like I really kind of rebel against the centralized stuff, the kind of the bigger mainstream stuff. I mean, I just inherently don't like it. But I ended up doing some things with FIFA World Cup. And it's amazing that an organization that size thinks differently now. You know, they had a long-term arrangement with EA doing their World Cup games. Mm-hmm. And as they exit that relationship, they're out there doing deals with metaverse gaming companies and taking a completely revolutionary approach. And it's like, that's the stuff that's exciting, because I think the space is primed for disruption, and play to earn is obviously a big part of that, with what it does in emerging markets to help the people that live in those markets, mm-hmm. And also just all of the other mechanisms of earn. Like, I want to see music disrupted. I want to see movies disrupted. Like, this centralized ideal of rights and how they flow, it's going to be really great to see what Yuga Labs does with all of the rights and the way they pass them on to the consumer to exploit. So it's an exciting time.
What I love that's happening is there's this transition that I mentioned of currency from the fiat world into the crypto world. But there are also two other transitions going on. One is the asset class, that is rights and IP, are moving into Web3 by translation into NFT format and being published and sold in Web3. And so it's a new asset class moving across. And then the other interesting asset class moving across that I feel like people don't talk about is talent. All of these brands, all of these companies are spinning up Web3 and blockchain teams, and professionals, not just developers and engineers, are learning about this. And if there's one signal that this thing is not only here to last, but growing, it's professionals learning about this and adding this to their career track, standing up and saying, I'm going to be the blockchain person at my company. That stuff has a real lasting impact.
Or even when you have something like Staples going to Crypto.com Arena, or you have FTX Arena in Miami, or you now have like a lot of major sports entities and even spokespeople blending into what is like crypto finance, like sponsorships, and like every major event that you might have even attended this week has had like a musical element or something of that nature in conjunction with like a major launch, or just like being in the mix of what is Consensus 2022. So with that being said, what does the NFT ecosystem with mass adoption, whether it's through like IP powering like people who want to download an app or be a part of an exchange, and even speaking about the use of tech, what does this ecosystem need to really usher in mass adoption? Amanda, I'll let you kick that off.
Yeah, I think that UX obviously is really important. I think there's a funny little trade-off between early alpha and UX, where a lot of DeFi trading tools and protocols had very bad UX. And that was kind of part of the alpha that you had to sort of be able to figure out how it worked in order to capture that. And so you're going to see maybe some of that shift as the UX gets better, but then you're also going to see a shift toward just so much more capital being able to flow into kind of these things. You're able to harness more total energy. But I think the UX of a lot of NFT applications is getting better. My hope is that there's not a sacrifice in that process of real decentralization in the core technology stack. In Mojito, we support Ethereum and Polygon. And we're going to support more chains, but focusing on decentralized chains. And so the one thing that I want to see is that move toward better UX is without sacrificing having true NFTs and true decentralization, so that consumers aren't buying what they think are NFTs only to see a blockchain be shut down or stop existing, and the thing that they bought that they thought would be valuable goes away. So that's my kind of word of warning, and also hope.
Les, what do you think?
I mean, I think it's happening organically already, and you're not going to stop it. You know, where you see in China where they outlawed crypto, but NFTs are okay. You know, they made a distinction. And when we look at just all of the game development that's happening, and it's in a collaborative form, meaning companies that are completely unrelated can build things where the rights may flow from some other company. I mean, if you look at Artifacts and Nike buying Artifacts and the Clone X portion and the Murakami portion, you've got like 4 or 5 different entities there that came together to have a really successful launch and project. Right now, there's a speculative nature to a lot of this, but I think what we're also seeing is this division. You know, with gaming, again, as an example, that's going to do really well when you're incorporating NFTs into games, into these environments where you're selling land and you're immersed. Like, that's just going to keep evolving. And, you know, that economy is going to evolve. And when that becomes global, I just think the creativity is going to spill in. And we haven't even seen, you know, the tip of the iceberg yet on this stuff. I mean, I can spend 8 or 10 hours a night just looking, and galleries are different. And I mean, everything is reimagined in this world, and that's what's super exciting. So it's just going to do it anyway.
When someone says to you that NFTs are potentially part of the gateway to Web3, and considering, you know, most people in this world, we're considered like insiders in a way, although we're very aware that there's so much more that can be done in this space. We want to be a part of that infrastructural future, right? How do you relay the desire to push forward and push deeper to someone who doesn't really want to understand what a wallet is? They hate Discord because the UI is crazy to them.
I hate Discord because the UI is crazy to me.
I know people are working on some better tools. That's a grail a lot of people are
Discord,
tilting at.
give us 30% to fix the UI of your Discord, please. But with that being said, how do you relay the importance of Web3 to someone that's like, well, you're an insider. Of course you know what's going on. Of course you know all these acronyms. Of course you've seen all the white papers. Like, the idea of communicating this in a way that's digestible still needs to be done properly.
Yeah.
What does that look like, in your opinion? Amanda?
That's been my job for a very long time, to try to make it comprehensible to different audiences. And different people want different things, right? People use the internet, and most people don't understand how TCP/IP works. People turn on a light switch, and most could not construct a light. People are going to use the blockchain without necessarily knowing that they're using it, without ever wondering how it works. But what they need to know is what it does. And there's a big difference between how it works. There are always going to be people that want to know how it works, and you got to be ready to explain it to them. You got to have that available for people. Some people want to know that. But what you need to convey in a very situational context is what it does. People only care about what kind of capability they're able to unlock, what they're able to do, what they're able to use, and it doesn't matter why. And a lot of blockchain companies that we work with are so excited about their tech, and we're excited about their tech, and their developer ecosystem's excited about their tech. But oftentimes, if they have a retail or generalist style end user, that end user just doesn't care. There's something else they want out of it. And so if you're a good marketer, what you do is you imagine what it's like to be somebody else that's hearing your message, You imagine what works for them, what doesn't, and you convey something that's compelling and accurate and focuses on what's in it for them, rather than how everything works under the hood.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I just got to be cognizant. Well, I don't even have to be cognizant. Like, I stopped selling shit a long time ago. So, like, if I take the time just to educate, someone, it's more fun for me just to kind of walk through it and say, this is my experience, take what you're going to take from it, and have the patience to do that, because I don't want to sell anything. Like, it's like that line out of Say Anything anyway. But the other part of your question is, people have natural skills. Rights management, there's lots of people that don't understand rights in music. Music is an old business, but whoever came up with this concept of multiple writers on a publisher side and a master ownership, and how's that work together, and what are permissions going to be like, and we're not going to automate it. It's like, all that shit's going to change. And it's going to be amazing if an NFT can house rights for a musician as these musicians emerge, where the consumer owns those rights for exploitation. You don't have to call anyone. And that's the problem with the music business as a whole, really not innovating anymore. So yeah, I think there's a lot of experts that come from these businesses that will adopt based on what their skill sets are.
The other thing I'd add is that there's a not a very high barrier to entry to become an expert in blockchain, and the blockchain expert class is self-exfoliating. So you had people that started with Bitcoin, and then Ethereum came out and they said, well, we love Bitcoin, but we just can't get down with this Ethereum thing. And then there was tokenization on the Ethereum blockchain, and some people said, I can get down with Ethereum, but what are these shitcoins? And then there are people that could get down with alts, and then they saw DeFi and they're like, this is crazy, can't get down. And then there's DeFi, and people are doing DeFi and saying, NFTs, this is crazy, this is just a bunch of collectibles. And so there are constantly people getting off the bus. And you can get on the bus. There are very few, actual credentialing programs required in order to help you become the blockchain professional in your organization. It's more about just building your own knowledge base, and all of this knowledge is public and accessible. And so you can be that person without having to knock 3 times on anybody's door. So it's pretty amazing.
So then I'm going to ask this final question. Where do we go from here? How do I get my mom to listen to me instead of asking me, why does my hairstyle keep changing? How do I get my office mates to believe in this instead of thinking by reading CNBC or watching really, really interesting things or listening to Joe Rogan that this is an actual thing to think about in a more robust way?
Well, if they all believed in it, there'd be no alpha for us. I'm joking, but it's true, right? It's true. Like, you can't force someone to be interested in something that they're not. I think every time the crypto industry intersects a new field, we bring in the people that are interested in that thing, right? So crypto was born of its parents were finance and technology. And so when I was first going to crypto stuff, circa like 2015, there were finance people and there were technology people. And because software is eating the world and everything is finance at the highest level, and crypto is eating finance, so by the transitive property, crypto is eating the world and everything's going to be crypto, and it's going to intersect with every single industry. The next industries that we bumped into were arts and entertainment, which was a super fun thing to merge our streams with, because we brought in some really fun people. We brought in some musicians, we brought in artists, we brought in entertainers, we brought in celebrities, and we take them all. And so then that reaches a new group of people, whether those people are art lovers, whether they're fans of a certain sports team. Next, I think we're going to intersect with other kinds of like supply chain, environmental, education, and credentialing. And each time we intersect with one of those new groups, the people that are into that thing are going to come join the movement.
I'll give you a simpler answer.
Organic claps, we need that. Continue.
Just do it for your mom. Like, my dad's 87 and asks me because he sees like what you can make, and I'm just like, fuck it, I'll do it for you. Here, I'll buy a couple. Makes it easier.
It's just, I don't need my mom telling her church group that I'm her stockbroker, because that's not what's happening. It puts me in a really, really weird position. I don't need people DMing me on Facebook and I'm ignoring their invites.
Not financial advice.
Right. It just makes it awkward when you go back to the family gathering, Thank you all so much for sticking in and being here. We didn't have that many folks get up during our session. I consider that a win personally. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Please give a major, major hand. Please follow Les and Amanda's work and be safe out there.